Hey and welcome back. Today I'm doing something about this. This is where my shoes are right now, and as you can see it's a mess because I get home and I kick them off and I don't keep it tidy and I'm constantly tripping over them. So it is time to do something about this. Alright, so I'm definitely keeping this simple. Firstly, I am going to keep this just raw natural timber. It's inside, it's not outdoors, so it doesn't need to be protected from weather. I also have heaps of natural timber tops on a lot of furniture in my house, so it ties in nicely. I've just got myself some pine. It's the cheapest to get. It is a shoe rack after all, so I don't want to spend a fortune getting fancy timber for it. These pieces here are 1.8 meters long. They are 1.9 centimeters thick and 18 centimeters wide. This smaller piece down here is what I'm going to use for the cross bracing or the panels in between to support the second level of the shoe rack. So I'm going to cut that into smaller pieces and use those across this, which you'll see soon. Okay, in terms of equipment that you need, so obviously you need the materials, the timber that I just spoke about, but you're also going to want a drill. You're going to want screws to screw the pieces together. I'm going to use a countersunk drill bit so that my screw heads sit in the timber rather than on top, because that's when they will snag on carpet or shoes or clothing. So I want them to be sunken down into the timber and out of the way. And also you will want to use an electric saw. You could use a drop saw or a jigsaw, it's up to you. You could definitely do this by hand, but that would be a lot of effort on your behalf, and I guess that's up to you. It is like 40 degrees here in Queensland at the moment. It is a hot day. I definitely do not want to be outside doing this by hand. Alright, so the first step that you want to do is measure the width of the timber that you're using for the shoe rack and mark this along the length of the bracing timber. Now you're going to mark this and then go out and cut it 4 times. Give those raw edges a quick sand. I'm just using some scrap old sandpaper that I had laying around. You could use a sanding block if you like, just to smooth it off so it's not jagged and it looks a lot better in the finished product. For placement of the bracing pieces, I have marked at 1/4 of the way along the length and at the 3/4 mark, so that I have a wider gap in the middle to put more shoes, but you might like to do it at even increments. So you would measure the whole length and divide it by 3 and then mark at 1/3 and then at 2/3 of the length of that. Now I highly recommend you drill some pilot holes. This will allow the screws to go in nice and straight, and it will make it a lot easier to screw those screws into those bracing panels through the base panel. I'm also going along with my countersunk drill bit to just drill out the top of each of those pilot holes a little bit, so that once my screws are screwed down tightly, they're sitting just flush under the top of the surface so they don't snag anything. Now you can put in a screw at each side of that first piece of bracing. And then go ahead and double check your measurements and make sure that you're putting your second piece of bracing in at the right spot as well. Now for each piece of bracing underneath, you're going to drill the pilot holes, use your countersunk screw bit if you do want to do that, and attach each of those with screws. Then you can flip it over and put the other piece of timber on top. I've kept my nicer piece of timber to have on top because I figure if there's no shoes on it, that's a nicer looking piece of timber to see. So you go through where each piece of bracing is now and do pilot holes and then screw it together. Be careful to keep your drill straight and your screws straight, because you don't want them to split the timber down the sides or come sticking out at any stage. And there you have it, a nice, neat and tidy way to store your shoes. Very inexpensive and very easy to put together. Now, if you're like me and this still isn't enough space, you might also want to add a third layer, and you can do that by following all of the same steps, but using some bracing underneath as well to lift it up off the carpet and give you another layer underneath.